Hello, this is Laura here in Denver, and us and I were just talking about what a neat idea it would be to have little video testimonies of what God is doing on campus, and also just give you updates on our family and how things are going. So I'll keep it brief, but I wanted to share a few stories with you of what God is doing, and also let you know we're going to have a baby in 4 days. We have a scheduled C-section, and that's what they're recommending since I had one with Eden. So that'll be on Wednesday, March 27th. If you'd be praying, that would be awesome. They're a little bit, not overly concerned, but that he's big. They had me do an ultrasound, and he's 9.5 pounds already, and will gain weight until Wednesday. So just be praying for that. They also said that 85% of the time they measure, their measurements are off, and that's actually too big. So maybe he was not really that big. We'll see. The kids are real excited. I think we're feeling ready. Angie, sweet Angie on our staff team, has offered to watch the kids while we're in the hospital and stuff. So I think we're set to go. And as far as on campus, it has been so neat just seeing what God is doing. I mean, there's just way too many stories to tell you all of them. Every Monday night we have our student leadership meeting, and we ask a question: how have you seen God working in other people's lives or in your life? And there's just always these amazing stories where God is really changing lives of students on campus, even in the midst of professors saying awful things about Jesus, even in a very hard place to be a Christian on campus. He's working, and so I'll just tell you one of them that's really kind of an intertwined story. But first let me tell you, last week at AMP, every Tuesday we have a weekly meeting where all the students we're working with get together, and it's really student-led. We try to let the students give talks and share their story of how Jesus changed their life, and lead worship and MC, and it's just really a neat time. But I'm just so overwhelmed every week there, because I look around and every single student there is somebody whose life has been dramatically changed by Jesus. That they would just be somewhere very, very different than they are, and somebody very different than they are, if Jesus hadn't intersected their life in college. So let's see. Just in the past couple weeks, we've got to see lots of people come to Christ. In fact, even one on Twitter. Got to lead someone to Christ on Twitter. Angie at the table got to lead a girl named Dee to Christ, so be praying for her. And a couple weeks ago, one of our student leaders, Nick got to share his faith with Jesse, and Jesse described himself as seeking, and he gave his life to Christ. So be praying for him. And also, Austin had an idea of going into the dorm on campus. There's one dorm on our campus of, I always thought it was 40,000, but it just keeps growing. So now it's actually 55,000 students on campus, mostly commuter, but this one dorm has 500 people. And normally we see a lot of students, future leaders, come out of that dorm, but in the last couple of years there just hasn't been very many believers who live there at all. It's been a very, very dark place. The things that you hear happen there are just probably things that you would never imagine. So it's been a very hard place. Austin had this idea to talk to the RAs, the resident assistants, and so he got to talk to all of them and present an idea of doing a focus group where you just talk about life and relationships and God, and then use it as an opportunity to kind of filter out and see who's seeking and who's wants to know more about Jesus. And so he presented the idea to all the RAs, and this one girl, Meredith, who's not a believer, said to the friend next to her, "We should do that." And the friend next to her, Stacy, was someone who God was really getting a hold of her life. She was a believer. She grew up in a Christian family, but just wasn't living it, and really was starting to think, I want to turn my life back over to Christ and let him have control. And so she said, okay. And so they did it. They had about 30 students intermittently join the discussion, which was really good. And what we found is most of the students on campus describe themselves as seeking, which is amazing because statistics show 85% of the students, Christian students that go to college, walk away from Christ. And in a city where 95% of the people aren't involved in any sort of church or anything, that's a lot of people who need Jesus. And so it's encouraging that lots of people want to know about him. They want to talk about him. So they had this discussion, the focus group. It went really well. And right after that, we had a retreat. And basically, through a series of events, Stacy really started getting involved. She's completely plugged in now, which is neat to see, being discipled and growing, wants to learn how to live out the Great Commission. And also, it happens to be this other student named Evan, who has, a whole story of how God was working in his life and using Austin. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, this is 36 minutes. Anyway, he is really starting to grow. He decided to give his life back over to Christ, let Jesus run his life for him. And God's using him in the dorm, and started bringing his friend Gustavo around. And okay, so there's Gustavo. Remember him. And then Austin is discipling one of our student leaders, Zach, and they went out to get in spiritual conversations with people so Zach could learn how to share the gospel. And they got in some good conversations, and then went back down to the cafeteria, and Gustavo walked up. So Zach had just learned how to share his faith, got to share the gospel with Gustavo, and Gustavo wanted to give his life to Christ. So it has been so neat. So now he's plugged in, and they were at a dinner and discussion where students get to throw out questions that they have about anything, life and God, and the rules are they need to bring it back to what the Bible says. And hold on, sweetie. And it's basically Gustavo went, and this other girl, Tina, one of our student leaders, here's Asher, dressed up as an elf. She brought one of her friends from her religious studies class, and turns out they're all in the same hall together. So God is working mightily in students' lives on campus, and we're so excited to be part of it. And Asher and Austin, Eden, and Uriah are outside shoveling snow right now. And he just came in. Do you want to say anything? No. All right. Well, thank you so much for praying. And we're just so excited to tell you what God is up to. And hope you're doing well. Love you guys. Bye-bye.